Yo, what's good, y'all, man? We right back to the Ethers podcast, man. I ain't gonna lie. I feel like I ain't been here in decades. I've kind of missed doing this. Had to take a little hiatus. I ain't gonna lie. The topic of this episode is kind of relating to what's been happening to a lot of people for the past 2 weeks, especially this transition into cancer. I feel like, yeah, it's time to get off our ass. Yeah. But before I get started, I gotta ask how the great Chloe's doing today.
Oh, I'm good. Y'all, I wasn't kidding last episode when I said the Dark Night of the Soul can be a biatch, because like that plus cancer season, your girl was in her feelings the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. And the cuss doesn't help either because with Gemini, that pivotal moment right there on June 23rd, it's like very intense. And it's like intelligence versus emotion. It's an ongoing battle for like that whole week. So
It
I
really
feel that.
was. Between my Gemini moon and my Cancer rising, I felt like I went through like an initiation and a death and a rebirth and another death and another rebirth. And it just, I was like, yeah, I was like, oh, this crazy roller coaster. But like the whole time I was like, it's okay. We're good, fam. And this is what we're talking about today, too, spiritual maintenance. So it's very on brand with the energy that we're in right now. You know what I mean? Protection, grounding, energy clearing, all the things.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, a lot of the times, have a hard time or don't even know how to clear their energy because people think by simply moving away that you're just clearing your energy or kicking certain people out of your life. You know what I'm saying? It's clearing your energy, but no, because anything
That's
that's
only a portion of it.
right, because anything external is a reflection of internal too. You know what I'm saying? So you got to do the inner work too.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of go over what the internal kind of energy muck looks like, blocks in your manifestations, what's going on there, what it looks like externally, those kind of influential factors that can kind of trigger your inner energy, so to speak, and kind of your energetic field, really, and how to kind of protect yourself or at least be able to be aware and recognize what energy is yours and what's not.
Want to pop it off?
Sure. I feel like manifestation blocks is probably a good place to start because I feel like that's where people get the most hung up on everything, right? Where they're like, where is it? And they're like stressing out and they're so focused on paying attention to what's around them. And we've kind of talked about this before a little bit and like how you can feel kind of uneasy about what's happening around you and not realize that a lot of it has to do with like limiting beliefs and conditions in your own mind and like emotions you might suppress and those kind of internal factors that do influence and kind of magnetize outward in addition to like external factors as well, which is, allowing other people's energy to influence us, messy environments, right? Like stressful situations, certain things where like that's not to say you can always blame the external thing, but it's more so being aware in the observation of the external thing, how you're allowing it to impact you and how you're reacting to it, because that usually fuels whatever it is you're feeling or thinking to
And
some degree.
sometimes being in a pattern can block your manifestations too. Like, let's say you do want to make a sudden change, right? A lot of the times you have to actually figure out what is blocking you. Like, for example, you're trying to manifest like something materialistic, because a lot of the times you have to change your character sometimes in order to manifest something physical. So if you're trying to get like manifest a car or something, the best way to do it is okay, what are the processes of me getting this car? Like, do I deserve? That's the key word. Do I deserve getting this type of car? Because a lot of the times your character can dictate that, and that could block you because you could be a piece of crap. Like, why do you deserve a Hellcat? You know what I'm saying? And even if you do get the proper steps, it's never going to be what you 100% visualize. You know what I'm saying? That's not how the world works. Like, oh, I'm gonna get 100% of what I manifested unless you actually change your character.
Yeah, you have to be an energetic match to it or be in the same frequency in order to align with it. And also, I think that's where like limiting beliefs come in because it's, subconsciously, do you believe you're worthy of it and deserving of it, kind of like you said? But also, are you does because it goes into this whole conversation of desire. What's your intention and why you want that thing? If it's to satisfy your ego or to fill a place of lack within you, or out of fear of not having it, you're not going to get it. You have to
Right.
almost embody having it and knowing it's already yours, even if you don't physically see it yet, because that's where like faith and fear kind of like bounce off each other a little bit. But I think it's digging deep and figuring out like, why do I want this thing? Because most of the time we don't want the physical thing, like a tangible car or whatever. We want the feeling that we think it's going to bring us by having it. So it's like if you can
Right.
just be aware of that feeling and feel that feeling now and then kind of let it go, that's how it works, I feel like. It kind of comes in.
Nah, nah, it does. And a lot of people think that it's way harder to manifest physical things than it is to actually manifest situations or opportunities, because those are things that we create for ourselves a lot of the times, or we see things that's already out there. We just want those certain opportunities. It's easier to get those than actual material because it's physical. So it's kind of like you have to go through physical processes in order to get those. Now, you may go through situations intangibly to get that car, quote unquote, example, but the whole point is, you're not just gonna wake up and be like, "Oh, I got a Hellcat." No, dude. There has to be procedures and protocols for all that. And second of all, you still got to put in the footwork regardless. And those blockages could be either you, your situation, of course, even people. Like, let's say you are in a great position to actually get these certain things and manifestations. A lot of the times, God or whoever you pray to in certain situations, the energy itself, the essence, may come and bring people in your life that may stop you in your tracks, may block you on purpose just to see if you can actually not fold, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also feel like too, in some regard, like if you're putting in so much work in order to receive or achieve or get or chase something, it's most likely because deep down you don't even believe it's a possibility for you. And that has to be resolved and
Yes.
released before it's even possible for you to receive it. Because if you have doubts or conditions or limitations around said thing that you want, or you think it's going to be hard, guess what? If you think it's going to be hard to get something, it's going to be hard to get it.
Yeah, fact. I was watching this TikTok, this dude named Lou. I
Mm,
think his name is Lou Manuel or something like that. He said something that really clicked, and I was like, damn, that makes sense. He said, instead of manifesting the things that you want, create something called the anti-vision, where create the situation of where you don't want to be and use that as a fuel source instead of a fear mongering source. Like, oh, I ain't trying to be in the hood, or I ain't trying to be in a trailer park, or wherever that causes poverty, and use that as a motivation of not being there instead of being scared that you will be there. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
The more
And I'm
you
like,
fear ending up in that spot, like you will,
will.
and take it from me, because to a degree, that was me. I was so subconsciously fixated and on an outcome that I was worried about that I ended up manifesting it. And now that I'm in it, instead of looking around and being like, fuck, like it happened, I could be like, well, what are the positive aspects in this situation? And how can I use it as a stepping stone to get closer to where I want to be? Because the contrast does serve you whether you like it or not. And also, I feel like with manifesting, there's this common misconception that you have to do a lot of things in order to get a manifestation. I feel like we're manifesting all the time, but because our thoughts create our reality. So it's just, are you being a conscious creator and deliberate, or are you creating by default?
And that's the word too, conscious. All it means is to be aware. So do you know? There's so many distractions and things that are outside of ourselves and outside of our control that we don't even realize sometimes. At least some people, we do, but it's like some people have things going on in their everyday lives. They don't realize, like, damn, I remember I did that a while back. I didn't know it manifested right now. So it's like one of those weird oddity things that people got to realize, like, yeah, that was you, bro, or at least a percentage of you. You know what I'm saying? Because you took that step to actually manifest that.
And I feel like that's where like being conscious of your emotional state, because I feel like knowing your emotions, it's almost like if you can understand your emotions, that's an indicator of your vibration. So if you're constantly like overwhelmed or anxious or overthinking, or you're irritable, or you're, impatient, or kind of like just exhausted all the time, it's probably because there's this inner monologue that's keeping you stuck in where you are, but you're not aware of it.
And that is a certain gin, whole nother episode, called a
Whole
mimic.
other episode.
Called a mimic, right? A mimic is something that kind of just possesses some people to not really do anything for their lives. Like they're kind of parasitic a little bit. You know what I'm saying? If people get those thoughts of doubt, that's basically what a mimic does. Like they'll whisper in your ear and everything. Like, nah, you're
Yeah, it's like your ego. It has a purpose in a way, because I think that it's designed to keep you safe, but it's actually more harmful than it is helpful if you are letting it drive, right? You have to kind of be aware what thoughts are truly you and what are trying to prevent you from being you, and like pull you apart from who you are. Because I feel like deep in our core, we all know that anything is possible. Anything's possible.
oh yeah, the limit.
There's a lot of things we don't know. And I think that can either be an empowering, wonderful, fun thing, or it can be to the ego like a very like scary, terrifying, overwhelming, paralyzing thing.
What would you suggest for people to clean that energy up so they can have a, happy highway to ride on? You know what I'm saying?
From my experience, meditation did wonders for me. Sitting in the And I don't mean like you can do, guided things or whatever, but for me, I kind of had to face that shadow and sit in the uncomfortable emotion. I had to, because a lot of people I feel like avoid going within because it's a scary place. Because it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of thoughts you don't like. You don't want to think about these things. You don't want to like, get too deep in the depths. And so I think people seek outside of them to repair that feeling of misalignment or dis-ease within them. But I had to learn how to be like, I had to learn how to tolerate observing those thoughts within me and disidentify from them completely, to be able to, and like I told this to one of my first clients. Shout out Shauna if you ever watch this. That was the friend I was telling you about. She was the first girl I ever read. I remember saying to her, if you ever feel like your thoughts are like really, really loud, but they don't feel very good, that's usually a sign that they're not actually you, right? Because you, as your soul, wants to feel good and is like a little cheerleader and is like, we could do anything, So I feel like that when it's really intrusive, sometimes to disidentify from your ego and have that ego death, sometimes putting a name to that voice is helpful. Like I named my inner critic, the judgment, the angst, Vivian. So when I would notice that I was in that place, because I'm observing the thoughts, I'm not the one pumping them out, I would be like, Vivian, I get what you're trying to do. Okay. I understand you're trying to keep me safe, but like, we're not doing that anymore. We don't,
exactly.
this is not, because I'm seeing how the more I think like this, the more it's existing around me, and I'm perpetuating that feeling over and over again. So I feel like breath work, grounding in your body helps a lot. Meditating and just kind of noticing your thoughts and letting them pass by like clouds is helpful, kind of like taking this belief inventory, journaling, right? Like, and I can list a whole bunch of like shadow work exercises for you guys at some point if you wanted to, because I could really dive into this. But I think just mindfulness really is the key answer to that, is just kind of being aware of your intention and your desire of wanting something, and what's the deeper rooted wound possibly as to why you want that thing. Do you want a man who, comes in and saves you when you're emotionally unstable because maybe your dad didn't do that in childhood? You know what I mean? Like just kind of like, but that's like the real shit though, is like this is what happens, is we deep down are craving or yearning something outside of us because at some point in our life we were conditioned to believe that we didn't have that, and we weren't young enough to be able to provide it to ourselves in some degree. So that's like the uncomfy work. That's why my book, is the work you refuse to do, or just like the most important work, because I think that people think that doing all these things outside of you is going to fix that hole within yourself that makes you not feel fulfilled.
And also to add on to that, you should also unclog the gunk in your chakras, right? Because you could be doing too much in your chakra wheels, right? Because your chakras can be swollen too. And what that looks like is the areas that you're doing too much of, right? Or not enough of, because there could be situations where your throat chakra is too big. It's like, my nigga, you talk too much. Or it could be your pineal gland, you overthink, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know what I'm saying, your sacral chakra, like either you have gut problems, you know what I'm saying? Or you don't have too much confidence in yourself, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it manifests in different ways. And I feel like those misalignments in your chakra are, indicative of that deeper belief you have about yourself that's kind of tied to that energy center, right? So, like root chakra, for example, if you constantly feel like something can go wrong at any minute, or you're worried about, people abandoning you, that's a wound in a, you know, limiting belief about you not feeling stable or
AKA
secure.
tucking your tail. Literally, you're tucking your tail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's where meditation, I think, helped me too, because I was able to kind of ask those energy centers like what it needed from me. How can I help this balance a little bit more? And then, you get the downloads. You just have to be receptive and open to it. Cause I feel like sometimes, I'll be like, damn, like my stomach really fucking hurts. And then there's a part of me that's just like, probably because you haven't fucking drawn some shit in a minute or whatever, like whatever the energy center is, like, if you're getting a lot of UTIs, right? In your sacral chakra, okay, that's probably an indicator that maybe there's a part, and by the book, like you might not pee a lot after having sex, and that's why you have it. But deeper than that, it's, you might not feel worthy of having loving, meaningful sex or caring about yourself or you're disconnected from your sexuality. There's other little nuances that come along with those energy centers, which we'll go into in a whole chakra episode. But essentially, it's just kind of not being afraid to ask yourself what it is that you truly feel like you need in this moment, and then learning how to show up for yourself to release those things and asking your ancestors and spirit guides for help, with protection, learning how to disconnect a little bit from the outside world, right? If you feel like you're in a lot of conflicts with other people or you're absorbing other people's energy, just being able to ask yourself, like, is this my energy or is it someone else's? And as a psychic, I still struggle with that sometimes. You know what I mean? I still sometimes am over here in my natural human mind, gaslighting myself into thinking that there's something wrong with me when really I just didn't call my energy back enough. And I allowed myself to get too invested in someone else's energetics. Cause it's like if we're a little, I'll put in an image in here, which I was literally thinking about this last night. I want to put the image of us with our energetic body in our field. Because what happens is like if you and I are standing here, right, we're not really interacting, we both have our little fields, we're kind of in our own bubble, energetic bubble. But if you and I are intertwining or standing close enough, it starts to mesh all over the place. And then all of a sudden I go home and I'm like, whoa, why do I feel like insecure with myself all of a sudden? And it's like maybe that person I was hanging out with was deeply insecure. I picked up on some of it. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not usually like this. And then you're able to kind of identify what's what.
And that's why you should cleanse your biofield or your aura. Some people call,
Biofield. That was kind of the term I was thinking of.
and there's a lot of ways to do it. A lot of people use copper to cleanse their
Oh,
biofield.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, a lot of people, because copper is very conductive, not just physically, but like it's really good because we have a magnetic field as well. But yeah, cleansing your biofield is very important. That's why it's good to actually isolate, which is a couple episodes we did before the Dark Night of the Soul. But yeah, you should definitely isolate yourself and really cleanse yourself.
That's the
You know?
only way you're going to be able to tell what's going on in your field, to be honest, is by
Yeah,
kind of stepping away from other people's energy and kind of checking in with yourself, so to speak.
facts.
I think so. I think that like if you can learn grounding and mantra work, I wrote some down actually. So like I ground my energy in clarity and truth is something that you can say a lot, or I do not carry any energy that isn't mine can help. um, spirit team, God source, whatever universe you want to call it, continue to shield my energy inside and out. I'm grateful for my discernment and your assistance, right? Anything that kind of helps bring you peace and ease and comfort, whatever kind of like it's not that affirmations like I am rich, I am wealthy. It's kind of like a command over your own energy, so to speak. I don't know if command is the right word, but I feel like returning, like, a lot of you might hear this a lot in the spiritual community, but return to sender. I don't claim any energy that isn't mine, because sometimes I don't do that consistently, but I'll find sometimes when I'm feeling something really heavy and I'm like, Spirit, I release and surrender energy that is not mine to you, the divine, with love and light. Return it, take it. It's not mine. Boop, boop, boop. It's like you're picking it off of you and you're kind of like throwing it not in your field anymore. Um, and we're returning it to the sender or just surrendering it to spirit to do with whatever spirit wants to do with it. But I feel like that always helped me a lot because I feel like just saying that over myself, I felt I was like, okay, it's gone. And it's like, how much of that is our own belief that that works? It really is such a personal experience as to like whatever method or whatever permission slip you need to release it, do it. But the whole point is to be aware that you're carrying something and mindfully and actively release it. And you can use things, like sage and crystals and whatever way you want to do it. There's a million plus ways. There's Reiki, right? There are ways to like kind of check your energy and clear it
Side
up.
note on the sage, be careful with sage, y'all. Lavender sage is to attract, and white sage is to repel. Just to let you know, and red sage is for rituals. Just to let people know, because people get that confused. When you actually sage, when you dispel a house, it's actually a beacon for spirits to come to you. So if you actually want to attract, go ahead and get that was the purple one, lavender. I think it's the lavender sage.
There's so many different sages. And yeah, it's definitely a do your research kind of thing. Do what resonates for you kind of thing. But I found that,
No, don't do it because of how you resonate. You have to do it based on the color.
well, yeah, based on what it is that you want, make sure you choose the right thing.
Right, because if you want to attract, don't get the white one.
Yeah, just be mindful about, what you're buying, essentially, like anything, right? Just do your research kind of thing. Because a lot of times people might get something out of desperation. But as much as I believe that an object has its own energetic power to like cleanse or attract or do something, I think so much of anything physically in this life, it's amplified by our own desires and hopes and intentions for said things. So I think it's important to be aware of both. So I'm not going to say get black obsidian in all of your, you're never going to be hurt ever again.
Or
Okay. Like it,
multiples.
yeah,
Okay,
like
multiply.
it's not the end all be all. There's energetic qualities to these things, but it's not an absolute. So if you think that, by getting clear quartz that you're never gonna feel, you know, blocked again, like no, that's not gonna happen. Sorry. Clear quartz does clear up some of your energy. And if you hold it, but it's really you kind of saying, I'm using this to help me clear my energy as like a tool rather than a band-aid.
Correct. Correct. And I also had to correct myself, my bad. Lavender is to repel and white sage is to attract.
I was
So
gonna try to find a little guide anyway, because I know there's so many more than just the ones that you mentioned too. Because there really is like there's so many herbs you could use for rituals and things. Like that's part of the fun, right? If you need something tangible to do to help yourself, that's why there are so many different mediums out there that you can use to do these things, whether meditation is your shtick, whether doing, a ritual bowl, whether it's running around the block and being like, I release, whatever your thing is, like whatever works for you is great. But I think that, just claiming your power back in whatever way feels best to you, having done the research, I think is the most important aspect
that's the
about that.
ultimate one. It don't matter how many herbs you grind down. If you still ain't in the spiritual position, that don't mean a thing.
Yeah, if you don't believe that it works subconsciously while you're doing it, it's not gonna work. If you're taking advice from someone who does that because, you know, they're like, oh, like you're definitely blocked, like you need to do this, but like there was no part of you that felt stuck or blocked, like, you know what I mean? So just pay attention to what your inner being and your intuition is telling you, because ultimately you know you best.
Facts.
I think so, at least. But I do feel like the key indicators, you know, I think I'm gonna put Abraham Hicks emotional scale in here somewhere, because I feel like that was so helpful to me to learn what emotions and where they kind of land on the vibrational scale, because I'll be able to notice the patterns like, okay, every single day this week, I noticed that my predominant emotion was angst or anger or, jealousy, whatever it is, right? I'm noticing that's a pattern. I probably need to help myself in some way by kind of shifting gears. I've noticed I've been a little bit in misalignment. Let me do something or be with myself. You don't always have to do something. Sometimes you just have to be and kind of check in with yourself and kind of figure out where you are. And then there's going to be other times where you feel the higher vibe emotions, but inevitably we're going to always drop down into those lower vibrations because we're a human being and we experience the range of them. These high emotions of joy and prosperity and, you know, over the moonness, if you will, I can't think of a better term, wouldn't exist if depression and hopelessness didn't exist. It's the
Yeah.
polarity of it all. So you need both, but the key is not to stay in the middle or stay all the way up here or stay all the way down here, because I think there's a common misconception that you always need to be in this high vibe in order to attract anything, and that's not necessarily true. I think it's learning how to show up for yourself and give yourself compassion and grace and understanding in those lower emotions to help free yourself of them, knowing that they're temporary and that you'll come back to your kind of natural vibration. But if you're noticing it's pretty consistent there and that's your like dominant vibration and it doesn't feel good to be there, maybe work on asking yourself what in me is bringing those emotions up, and thoughts usually create the emotion to me.
And to piggyback on that, like people got to realize emotions and logic, they're not just things that you always dwell in a realm. These are pockets you can jump into. Because most of the time we're neutral. It's like you're
Mm-hmm.
not always gonna be jolly because sometimes it can be switched over to another thing in a heartbeat, you know? Like let's say you could be sad about something. You're not gonna stay sad unless you are, then that's called depression. Or you could be in this positive mood, but that makes you more naive and you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. So it's like you have to learn when to jump in these pockets and know that it's equilibrium based. It's not, it's all percentages, like you said, oh, I got to be in this high vibration because you can be a bad person and be a high octave bad person. Being high is not always a good thing. It just means a lot of something. So you got to be careful on being too positively high. Not saying you shouldn't be a positive person, but just make sure you're not naive when you're positive. Because sometimes you could just be overjoyed, and then you could be missing someone trying to manipulate you, and just have discernment, and because spiritual warfare is real now. It ain't always just physical. You can't just get punched. You can't just only get punched physically. They can be mentally punching you, aka talking shit indirectly, sneak dissing, or spiritually dissing you by trying to dominate you in certain situations. So it's like it's all warfare in some kind
and
of way.
and, and seeing how that happens, because I sometimes, when I energetically was being stabbed, I felt it in my shoulder, and I'm like, my shoulder never be hurting like this. So just pay attention to your body too, and kind of like, I think that knowing, like you said, the extremes of the emotions and anywhere in between, it's just something you experience. It's not who you are. You're the one observing kind of your range of emotions as a human being. So if you know what your baseline emotion is, your baseline energy of where you sit predominantly, if you're in one area for too long, you could be like, this is not this is not my neutral. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so figuring out kind of, you don't want to sit in anything for too long, because it's not, that's not to say you can't be happy all the time. I agree with you. I think that people who are overjoyed all the time, it just depends, because I think that sometimes people will force that, and then
Right,
it's
right,
not actually, it's like a facade
right.
or a mask. But there are people who, including myself, have freed myself of a lot of limiting beliefs where I don't hang around here as much anymore, and I am more predominantly up here. But I'll notice that like when I'm up here, it just feels good and neutral, and it's not inauthentic. Right. So if something happens where I'm like ecstatic, then it's great because I still have like a free range of motion, like go up even higher. And if something bad happens, like in my perception, I don't take it personal. I don't get so far down. It's like you have forget the word. It's like a range of motion, so to speak. Like you just kind of, I'm sure there's a more scientific term for what I'm trying to talk about here in terms of energy and frequency and, that sort of thing. But I do think that it kind of, that knowing your range and knowing yourself, period,
Yeah.
helps all of that, because then you can feel like, I've been around this person a lot. I feel like I'm a little drained. Maybe I should take a minute to reboot, so to speak, and just have a conversation with myself and ask yourself, what you need, really.
How do you think we can maintain that though?
I think understanding that, well, maintain what? Your vibration.
Or just being spiritual maintenance, I guess. Like how can one realize, like, once they get in their bag, right, their spiritual bag, how can they try to stay there in a sense of like not go back to that part of the dark anymore?
I
Maintenance.
Yeah, I think it's understanding that the fact that you're even aware means that you're never going to go back to where you once were.
Right,
And also understanding that as a human, we're inevitably going to experience that step one contrast of feeling bad. I think that I felt like I should know better. And like, why was I sitting in this feeling for too long? And it's when you resist being in that state, it persists. So I think that for me, giving myself grace and compassion, that just because I'm experiencing this feeling doesn't mean that it's indicative of my progress or my spiritual growth or evolution. It just means that I've learned how to help myself not stay there so long to the point where it feels so awful, because I love myself enough to help myself come back to my home base energetically, so to speak. So it's like, asking yourself kind of what you need, not guilting or shaming yourself for being in that space, right? Knowing kind of when it's time to take some time to yourself, just being in tune with you and your inner source and your inner being, I think helps a lot. But I think I've always felt bad when I felt like I got knocked off my high flying disc for a while, because I knew what that high flying disc felt like. So when I wasn't there, I was so fixated on the fact that I wasn't there, and I felt like I was doing everything to like run from what I was feeling. And I feel like my inner being was kind of just saying to me like, hey, if you just like feel it out for a second, you'll go right back up like a cork underwater. Boop. Like you'll just,
yeah. It may not even be that bad either, because what if certain situations that you constantly get in, maybe you have to learn something from it. You
yeah, you're resisting your present moment the more you try to escape what you're feeling. You just have
Right.
to
It's like
allow
already
it.
back in.
Yeah, you just have to allow it. But I think that kind of, to your point of maintenance, I think the key to anything is just being in observation mode as much as you possibly can and not feeling bad when you're not, you know?
Right.
That would be my advice to everybody, because I think I struggled with that for quite a long time, because I felt like once I had all the tangible, or not tangible, but once I had all the knowledge and awareness, it was then time to kind of put it into practice in my everyday life. And so I feel like as I was giving readings to people and I noticed that they were going through the same things that I had gone through, I would kind of say to them, like, you know, you're not going to undo however many years old you are worth of habit overnight. You may have this profound awareness, but like anything, it's little by little taking steps in the direction that feels good to you, generalizing your thoughts and kind of aligning with that, and not being an absolute dick to yourself when you're not. Which is what I kind of had to learn. Because
Yeah.
like the more I'm like, Chloe, you're fucking up. Like, you should be up here. Like, the more I like gaslit myself, the more I was in that energy that I
Right.
knew what it was. And yet I was still feeding into it when my inner being is like, hey, why don't you like go for a walk? Just pick up your guinea pig. You like have a bite to eat, drink some water, take a nap. Honestly, going to sleep, I feel like stops the momentum of resistance no matter what. Just go to bed, take a nap.
Yeah,
You get a whole
absolutely.
reset. You wake back up, you're in a whole more neutral zone ever again. So I definitely felt like this episode was needed. I'm glad we kind of went into this conversation and it was interesting because, I had kind of postponed on banks a couple of times because I myself felt in a misalignment and I knew that I didn't want to come here and pretend to be on that high flying disc when I wasn't there. And I had to kind of allow it myself to feel that out and kind of naturally kind of bring myself back up as it does in perfect timing. So now I was able to speak so much more clearly about it today because I literally just did it.
And I like how we do these episodes anyways, because I feel like, you know, it's like a reflection of what we're going through the prior week. And
Oh
it's like,
my
oh, it's
God.
a recap. So I like it.
And we hope all you guys enjoyed watching this episode. And if you didn't see our last episode, go do that. Thanks, and I are always available for readings. Hit up our Ethers link tree, subscribe on all the things, follow us on TikTok, hit us up for readings, all that good jazz. We're still going to do our celestial check-in. So a little update on that. We're going to start doing it a little more before the actual date that we read for to give you guys enough time to watch it before the upcoming weekend. So expect to see that the 14th because we're going to read for retrograde season on the 18th.
Ooh, Anderson Mercury. Stay tuned.
We're going to give you guys all the astrology, a good little tarot talk, give you guys some guidance. But most importantly, we love you all very, very, very much. And we thank you so much for your support.
Bye.
We'll see you next time. Bye.